We have a few talks now for you before our next break, and I'm delighted to introduce our next speakers. So we have with us today Chris Mackey, who's from the Health and Social Care Alliance, and also Andrew Williams, who is from Connecting You Now, which is actually one of the projects that the Minister mentioned this morning. So Chris and Andrew are going to give you a really in-depth insight into what they have been building together and how they've gone about that in a really citizen-focused way.
Thank you very much. You did a good job of introducing us, but there you go, just in case you're confused which way round we are, Chris and Andrew. Yeah. Connecting You Now came about as part of a challenge from an organisation called CivTech, which is, I think the Minister mentioned earlier, is sponsored by the Scottish Government, and it's an initiative to try and make, two aims, is to try and build what they're calling a GovTech hub here in Scotland, but also to be more innovative and agile within government, because government aren't renowned for the most speedy responses to problems. And this was the challenge that we responded to. And as you say, it's all about giving access to public services to the citizens of Scotland, starting with disabled people. So there's a few things in there. If you're interested in the CivTech organisation, especially if you're a start-up or a small company, they run about every 6 months or so, and they issue about a dozen challenges each time. And some of them are quite interesting. Well, there's a whole variety of things. From when we went, there was like business information for all parts of Scotland to understanding the damages that beavers are causing to the infrastructure of Scotland. So there's a whole raft of things that you can set your mind to, but this is the one we chose. And this is the path that we chose to go along. And I think Christoph said earlier, it's really, really important to make sure that you are solving a particular problem. So we spent a lot of time talking to a lot of potential users, and we spoke to people with sight loss, with hearing loss. We spoke to older people who are not so digitally native, and we spoke to kind of a control group of people who are quite digitally native, and to understand what their actual problems were accessing public services in Scotland. Our initial hypothesis was that they found the services and couldn't then interact with them, so filling in forms online and the like. But actually we found that the biggest thing was that they couldn't find them. They didn't know they existed. There are, in mygov.scot, there are something like 12,000 services listed. In ALISS, that Chris will talk about soon, there's nearly 6,000 services. So there's a lot of stuff out there for the public, and their biggest problem we found was that they couldn't find it. We went through a period of user prototyping, doing as little code as we could. Fortunately, at this point, ChatGPT was launched, so we actually had a potential technology solution, because before then I had no idea how we were going to fix the problem. Part of that user prototyping, we found people wanted an empathetic system. It was really important, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, that it has to treat them empathetically. But we kind of dialed our empathy up to 12, and we needed to dial it down a bit. So somebody was saying, I've got visual impairment. You can't really apologise to them for having a visual impairment. So we had to sort out our prompting to make sure we turned down the empathy. Chris will no doubt mention this, but our search, when we started off with, was okay, but it wasn't as accurate as it could be, so we did a lot of work to improve that accuracy. This one here, which I thought was my controversial thing, it was too chatbotty. Again, part of that the research is those user groups we spoke to don't like chatbots. And given this is a chatbot conference, I thought that was an unusual thing, but they don't. Our feedback is people don't like chatbots. So we've spent a lot of time making our chatbot not look like a chatbot. And our kind of solution to that is the side panel, and I'll show you a screenshot later of the solution we've ended up with. So once we'd got to that point, we had a decent solution, it was working, it was doing the right things. What we then needed was to run this in a beta test environment. We wanted to get the general public access to it so we can get some real user feedback. And at that point, Chris and his organisation and his team at ALISS stepped up to be our beta test guinea pigs. So hand over to Chris.
I have guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm from the Health and Social Care Alliance Scotland. One of our mottos is people at the centre. So this title for a conference is really good for us. We've got a real emphasis on human rights, so ethics, really important to us. So as an organisation, we were involved with the Connecting You Now project, actually from quite early on through the testing side of things and making sure that the accessibility was really at the start and right at the centre of the Connecting You Now system. However, we found that there was going to be a use case for Connecting You Now using the ALISS system. So just a few words about ALISS. ALISS is a local information system for Scotland, and it is a crowdsourced information source for people across Scotland to find information about community assets. So largely third sector, but not necessarily. Anything in that non-medical kind of health and well-being space, there's room for that on ALISS. So we crowdsource the information. It's not curated as such. It's not sourced by us. It comes from communities, and our job is to promote it and to engage with people in order that they use the thing from a search point of view, but they also add resources and add activities that they're aware of. And we've moved into a digital space as well, with lots of digital tools which people can access for health and well-being as well. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of ALISS. It's been in existence as a programme, funded by Scottish Government, I should say, for about 14 years. So in tech years, quite a mature product. Just the analogy with dog ears sort of comes in as well there. Yeah. So if you can go to the next slide. We have objectives as a programme. We set them about 3 years ago. So we're keen to get more data about community assets into ALISS so that more people can find what they're looking for on there. We're wanting that data quality to be as good as possible, so we want people to keep their information up to date. We want to have a better experience, so we want to improve accessibility of the alice.org system, but also accessibility being a key part of Connecting You Now. So the better experience part comes into this new way to interact with ALISS that we've been testing for the past 6 weeks.
Yep.
More users as well. So that's about promoting the service and getting more people to access it, because one of the challenges is people don't know it's there. So those are the main things, but this Connecting You Now really keys into the better experience piece. Yeah, so the timer isn't working.
Notes there, we'll swap around.
I can't see. So the first demo, as Andrew mentioned, let's just say it wasn't the best in terms of the results that it came out with. And what's impressed me most about the journey that we've been on up this rocky mountain that you can see is that we've really got to a point where we were confident putting it on the production site of ALISS. We were confident that it actually gave good results. So the search accuracy we started this conversation maybe in October, and by January we were able to put it on. Even although it is very much a beta test, it's not production. It's quite clear that if you're opting into Connecting You Now at this point in time, you're part of this beta test. Location, ALISS is very much based around location, so often people will use their postcode or they'll use their town or city as a location. So what we can do is find services that are near to people. Guardrails were really important. So what that means is, basically, if somebody puts something in that is really concerning, it stops being a conversation and it refers to 111, 999, Samaritans. You know, if somebody says, I'm thinking about suicide, that's where you stop the conversation and it becomes a referral to a crisis intervention. And we wanted to set that at the correct level because what we, I think at one stage had was, you know, if you put in, I'm feeling depressed, then you would get that sort of guardrail kicking in. And actually, the bar needs to be a bit higher than that because there's lots of interventions on ALISS that could help somebody who's feeling depressed. So we wanted to get to a point, and we've worked through, I don't know how many spreadsheets in terms of all the different sort of scenarios where we would want it to stop being an AI, and we would want it to just go, right, you need to do this now. So guardrails really important. Data protection, we've done our, well, Connecting You Now have done a privacy policy. We worked together on a data protection impact assessment. So just thinking about all the technologies that are involved, we use Azure from an ALISS perspective. Connecting You Now uses Google Cloud. It's also using OpenAI as well. So there's all sorts of GDPR and things to consider. So that had to go through our data protection officer at the Alliance. So beta learnings. Well, what we've learned is people like it, you know, just on an anecdotal level, and we're starting to get more intel through from dashboards and things like that. But the feedback that we've had from people, and some people who are really active in the space, Caroline included, you know, have really played with it and tested it, and have found that it's actually working as we would have hoped it would, and that what it represents, I suppose, is a possible future. Maybe in tandem with the traditional search model, because I'm not sure we're quite ready for a full-on conversation with ALISS all the time, but that could be something that we put alongside the traditional search options, because what we know is that people don't know what they don't know, you know. So what happens with the conversation, we'll maybe see it in a minute, is just that you start with the person, you start with them and what their circumstances are. You know, you can start with, I'm feeling depressed today, or I've got a sore back today, that sort of thing, rather than the search thing is, you're looking for a walking group, you're looking for a befriending service, you're looking for mental health supports. So it's flipping the thing on its head and basically putting people back at the centre. I don't know if I've covered all my notes.
So this is what it looks like in production. I just wanted to flash it up. The bit on the left-hand side is ALISS as it stands at the moment, and what we've developed is this side panel where you actually hold the conversation, and as Chris said, you don't search for the results you want, you start with the problem that you've got. The one, you mentioned it there, I use it. One of the examples I use is, I'm recently widowed and I'm feeling lonely, and you have a conversation, it asks your location, and it ends up suggesting befriending service. Actually, I have to admit, I didn't know befriending services existed, which was brilliant. So it's, you don't know what you don't know. The other thing on this slide is the accessibility settings. So we've got some fairly standard accessibility settings there. So you can change the size of the font, the size of the cursors, the contrasts for the screen. The conversational search is there, but we've also kind of turned down the reading level for people who are have hearing loss, have actually got a lower, generally got a lower reading age than average. So we reduce the reading age of the system. Empathetic character, I mentioned it a couple of times, it's very important that it speaks in an empathetic way. One of the bits of feedback we had early on was if you have a disability, it can be really hard work interacting with a digital thing. So just physically typing can be hard. So if appropriate, we present chips. So this is just a single click to give a response as opposed to typing. So it's just reducing the effort. And we can also type or speak into the system. So we've got a speech to text in there and text to speech again to to reduce the fatigue of using the system. And then back to you, Chris.
Yes. So just thinking ahead. So what is the next move for ALISS? We're developing a roadmap for the ALISS programme, and it's needing to consider this type of thing. So it could be a possible future default way of interacting with ALISS, or it could be a possible option of interacting with ALISS going forward. And at that stage, we would probably want to make it look and feel a bit more like part of the site. So what we were very keen to do in this instance was to make it absolutely clear that it was a separate thing that you were trying out, that you could still use ALISS in the traditional way on the left-hand side, as Andrew said. One of the other things that we've done recently is a development of an Alexa app called My Scottish Community, and Caroline has been working with the ALISS programme on that. So that thing and Connecting You Now could possibly link up in the future. We haven't explored anything like that, but it seems to make logical sense. We're seeing developments on the Amazon side which could assist with that. There's possible API connections and all blah blah blah. So anyway, the third point there is just about from the kind of back end of ALISS. So we have an admin dashboard where people can add their information and edit their information. Just an idea I dreamt up was, well, what if you could actually speak your entry in? I wonder how many people would do that, but anyway, it's a thought. And we also thought just, thinking about AI and how AI might look at the ALISS data set and then go on to the third-party website, find that the third-party website was more up to date and had other things on it, could come back to the ALISS data set and possibly suggest improvements or edits, or we know this isn't happening, or we can't find this happening, so maybe this needs to come off. Probably need human intervention to ensure that worked correctly. I quickly mentioned the digital front door, which is a Scottish Government initiative. It was actually an SNP manifesto commitment to have an app for health and social care, so it's been nicknamed the digital front door. We see ALISS as being part of that in terms of information provision, but I think a possible future, given that all of this work has been funded by Scottish Government to date, is that this app, whenever it comes to fruition, could have as its very door the Connecting You Now thing. What I would say about that is that the number of hoops that Connecting You Now would have to jump through would be significantly more than they were to get on ALISS. And that's one of the things why it ended up on ALISS, because we're a third sector organisation. We're relatively agile, notwithstanding data protection. But it is something about, could this be a public service? Could this be on gov.scot? Could this be on NHS Inform? Could this be on whatever digital front door becomes, which will be in the years to come? So, that's where we're going, possibly.
Cool. And then I have to do a little bit of a techie speak. What we did was you used the ALISS API and the 5,500, 6,000 services. We ingested that content and stored that in our vector database on the left-hand side, and then we had the conversation on the right-hand side to understand the intent and do the actual search. But what we found, one of the things we did as part of the improving the accuracy of the search was we added a next level of information. So each of those services listed in the API have also got a website attached to them. So we crawl that website to get the next level of information. So rather than just the 6,000 pieces of data, we've got 20,000+, which then basically better understanding of the content, better understanding of the user need gives you a more empowered citizen. People are going to find what they need more quickly. A couple more slides. What's next? Hopefully grow the use on ALISS, implement on Scottish Government sites, but actually anybody else interested in this kind of technology, this kind of solution, we have developed it so we can plug it in just about any kind of content. We can ingest it and understand it and help your users, whoever they are, find your content and your services. There's a couple of examples there. And the final slide is some lessons learned. And this, my favourite thing that I've discovered over the last 12 plus months of doing this is large language models lie. They have a tenuous relationship with the truth. They are basically designed to give you an answer. They don't actually check that that answer is factually correct. So you have to do an awful lot of work to make sure that what you do is true. And we've luckily, we had the ALISS data that we can trust and we can rely on, so our answers are all restricted to that ALISS data. But that's, anybody going anywhere down the AI route, you have to make sure that you've got some coding in there to make sure that you've got a layer of truth in your solution. And that is it. I can't remember how long ago that went to 0, but it was a little while ago, wasn't it?